with State Senator Tony Strickland. Today you introduced the Restoring Accountability Act, saying you want to rein in major state regulators. Could you just give us a general overview of the legislation in your words and what you're ultimately trying to accomplish with it?
Well, by this bill, Senate Bill 885, I'm trying to bring back accountability to major policies that have a major effect on California. The number one issue for California is the affordability crisis, and major regulations are made by unaccountable boards and agencies like the California Air Resources Board. And the reason why I came up with this legislation is back in May of 2025, the chair of the Air Resources Board says they don't even take into account the economic impact when they're making their regulations. And I said, wait a minute, every bill that comes before me, I look at what the economic impact is, how it's going to impact my community, my state, and my district. And so I think we need to bring in more accountability in these unaccountable boards and agencies. And so any regulation that's done by any of these unaccountable boards that's over $50 million or more has to come back to the legislature for a simple up or down vote. That way we bring more accountability and allow those who have to actually represent the people of California. If we're going to put in these major regulations, they have to put their stamp of approval on that. Because if you don't like the job I'm doing, you can vote me out or any of my colleagues in the legislature, but you can't vote out these people who are on these unaccountable boards and agencies. So again, it brings back accountability and it brings more transparency into the process here in the state of California.
Great. And then do you see this bill facing any resistance, and are you confident it will receive support from state lawmakers in both parties?
Well, I'm hopeful that both parties would support this. This isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. It's about bringing back accountability into the legislature. You know, the best way I could describe it is I played basketball. At the end of the game, I always wanted the ball in my hand because, you know, I wanted to make those decisions and live or die with those decisions. And every one of my colleagues should want that same opportunity, because when we're talking about the affordability crisis in California, many of the reasons the cost drivers here in the state of California, a lot of them are not even done by the legislature. They're done by these unaccountable boards and agencies. And again, I get calls in my office all the time. How do we get rid of these people on the Air Resources Board? Well, you can't. They're appointed, and that's not what our founders had in mind in terms of government. We want representative government. That's why I want these decisions to come back to the legislature, and then let the legislature vote, and then explain their vote to the people when they're up for re-election.
Great. And then you've mentioned the California Air Resources Board. Are there any other regulatory boards that voters should be concerned about other than that one?
Well, I think they're all concerning because again, I don't like whenever people are making decisions that don't have accountability. Accountability is important to me, and I should think it should be important to all Californians, because every 2 years they look at their elected representatives and say, are they doing a good job or not? And if they're not, they vote them out. You can't do this with these unelected boards and agencies. And the biggest difference over the last 15 years from when I was in the legislature before until now is these unaccountable boards and agencies are gaining more and more authority and more power. And I think that power should go back to the legislature and the governor, because those people are accountable to the people of California.
Okay, and then moving on to another topic today, the California Senate Republican Caucus sent a letter to Governor Newsom asking for a special legislative session on the oil and gas cost crisis. You were one of the lawmakers who signed that letter. Could you just tell us about your goals for that?
Well, I mean, we're projecting, USC, not us, USC is projecting it could be anywhere up to $8 a gallon of gas, because we've just lost 20% of our production with Valero and Phillips 66 shutting down the refineries. And we only have 12 refineries around the world that do California formulated gasoline. And so now we're shutting that down, and now we're buying our oil from India and China, or our refined oil, and they buy their crude oil from places like Iran and Russia. So I think it's a national security issue on top of it. But also what's being projected, just not high gas prices. There could be shortages. And I remember when I was a little kid when we had shortages, when you went to a gas station and they had no gas. That's what's being projected. And so we need to get ahead of this crisis before it becomes a major crisis and go to emergency session, because high gas prices fall disproportionately on hardworking California families. People across the state of California shouldn't have to decide between a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas. We need to do whatever we can to lower these prices. By the way, nationally, gas prices are going down dramatically everywhere, but they're going up here in the state of California because of this crisis. So we need to tackle this crisis immediately.
Right. And then you already kind of touched on, you mentioned it was you believe it's a national security issue. Could you kind of elaborate why you think that?
Well, because when we're buying our oil from India and China, or refined oil, and then they're buying their crude oil from Russia and Iran, what's happening? The people who are shipping to us, they get to charge the shipping costs, and over the last couple of years, they've already doubled the cost of shipping. And now that we rely almost exclusively on foreign imports, they can charge whatever they want. And when we talk about California, we have military bases throughout the state of California. We're probably the biggest state when we have national security and military bases. We need that oil here, and now we're relying on foreign countries for national security, and I don't think that's smart either. It's bad for the people of California, but it's also very concerning in terms of national security issue.
And then finally, do you believe Governor Newsom will actually grant the request for a special legislative session on this issue?
I'm hopeful because, everybody knows that Governor Newsom's running for president. The first question that he's going to get when he goes around the country in Michigan, Illinois, is very easy. Look at the gas prices in California versus everywhere else in the nation. Do you want that to come to your state? If he wants to be president of the United States, he has to lower these gas prices because, again, the rest of the country gas prices are dropping dramatically, but they're increasing here in the state of California.
All right. And unless there's anything else you want to add, I think we're all set. And if there is anything you want to add, go ahead.
No, I'm good, and I really appreciate the opportunity you having me today.